let's get started then. And what I'm thinking is maybe if you do have questions, we should maybe think about holding till the end because the question you may have in your head, we might address it as we go through. So let's see. But if there's anything urgent, then please feel free. Great. So let's start off by looking at, how do we prepare for the exam? So the big thing about CFA is studying hard. So we need to put in the study hours. The CFA program, believe it or not, if you're not sure, if you haven't ever attempted it before, it's not really so much the difficulty, it's the volume. There's a lot of work with CFA, so it's not really the clever people who pass, it's the hard workers who pass. So what CFA institutes say on their website is that successful candidates, they do about 300 hours of studying for each level. Now, I don't know how people pass with only doing 300 hours. To me, it makes no sense. I don't know how it's possible. We recommend that we need to do at least 500 hours. Now, that sounds impossible, right? How can we possibly do so many hours? But what the way I approached it is I did 20 hours a week for 20 weeks, and that gives us 400 hours already. So 20 weeks, that's about 5 months. So what we need to do to do 20 hours a day for 5 months. So how can we get there? Well, what I did is I did 2 hours a day, Monday to Friday. And so that's already 10 hours for the week. And then on Saturday, 5 hours, and then Sunday, 5 hours. So there's another 10 hours. So it's 10 hours on the weekends, 10 hours during the week. That's 20 hours a week. We do that for 20 weeks or 5 months, and then we get the 500 hours that's necessary. Well, we get 400 hours. And then what I did is in the few weeks before the exam, I just did CFA full time, all day, all night. So then we can get another 100 hours there in just before the exam, the week or two before the exam. So the amount of hours, it does also depend, on the person's ability and their background. But so if you've just come out of university and your degree is closely aligned with CFA, well, then maybe 300 hours over here. Sorry, somebody wanted to make a note of something for you. Maybe this 300 hours is going to be enough, but otherwise, I think it's a lot of nonsense, this 300 hours. So we recommend 500, and that's how we're going to get through this exam. So the best thing to do is to set up a timetable. We'll talk about just now about Schweizer, a company we partner with in America. They've got a fantastic study plan that we can use, or even CFA Institute themselves. When you enroll with them in America, then they've got this learning ecosystem, and they can you can also set up a program there, so on their website. So the big thing is to stick to it, and then we got to that keeps us on track. So if we've got a program, so like in the study plan of Schweizer, it sets you up. Let's say you, for example, you're writing in November. So from now to November or August, whenever you want to write, then it'll set up a plan for you so that every day you cover enough to do the number of hours you want. So you put in the number of hours that you want to do, and it'll set up for you. So every day it tells you where you should be, what classes you should be watching, and all that kind of stuff. So it's really, really helpful. Right. So as Greg was saying, the pass rate, it's low for CFA. So for the past 4 exams, there's 4 exams a year. So last year there's exam in February, May, August, and November. The average pass rate was only 44%. Now, why is that? So the first reason is the insufficient study hours. So we've covered that. So we're going to forget about 300, and we're going for 500, right? So we've overcome that hurdle. And the other problem with CFA is that there's 10 subjects we've got to know, and all 10 subjects are on one exam. So it's all examined on one day. So it's not like one day we do quantitative methods, the next day we come back and do economics. It doesn't work like that. So that's one of the problems. And a lot of students have actually told me that they found their university exams harder than CFA exams, the questions harder, but the problem is everything being on one day, that makes it tough. And also, no, there's no projects or assignments or anything like that that count for your mark. So everything boils down to one exam. And then the other problem with CFA is the self-study. So we can overcome this one. We can help you. We're going to tell you now how we can help you. So we can overcome the first one and the third one, but we can't do anything about this one, unfortunately. Right. So let's have a look at what the exam structure looks like. So it's a computer-based test now. So you go to an exam center and you write there, and it's multiple choice. So it's A, B, or C. So the good news is we walk in with 33%. And we'll see just now what mark we got to get up to, but we can start with 33%. It's not a bad start. So there's 2 sessions. In the first session, we've got, it's 2.25 hours, so it works out 135 minutes. And these are the subjects we're going to be writing in the first session. And there's 90 questions in the exam. So it works out at 1.5 minutes each, or 90 seconds per question. So this means we got to know our work really well so we can answer quickly and accurately. So because the time is such an important factor, we're going to talk about it a bit more just now. What we need to do is there are going to be some short questions which we can answer in 30 seconds or less. And then those questions, we're going to borrow time from those short questions for the more difficult, longer questions. Right. So, and then the second sessions, we've got it's the same time and questions. And now we've got the different subjects, which is nice. So the first session, we want to be fresh for ethics and points, right? We want to be fresh. So it's good that comes first. And then the second session is more of the investment subjects. It's nice that it's separated like that. And then every question, it's got its own stem and answer choices. So in other words, for question 1, you've got some information, and then you've got the answer choices below. There's nothing where it'll say the following information relates to questions 3 to 7, nothing like that. So each question, you do question 1, and it's got its own info, then you move on to question 2, etc. So these are the exam dates that we've mentioned. So there's a lot of flexibility now for level 1. It's 4 times a year. And then there's also a practical skills module that you need to do. It's not examined, but you need to submit it after you write. So most people will submit it after the exam. So if you don't submit it, they're not going to release your results. So you have to submit it, in other words. And you can either choose financial modeling or Python. Right. I don't know anything about Python, so I think financial modeling would be better. Okay. So let's have a look at the subjects now and the weights. So it's pretty evenly spread, like you can see there. It used to be quite a bit different, but for example, financial statement analysis had a very high weighting. That kept on reducing it recently, and they've increased the investment components. They used to be low, now they're a lot higher. So everything is more or less equal now, except maybe derivatives is a bit low, but it's still could be 8%. And before it used to be maximum of 5%. So they've increased weightings for other topics. And then the big one is ethics. So we got to know ethics really, really well. There's also this ethics bump you may have heard of, that if you borderline case and your ethics is good, then they push you through. That's what everybody knows about. So it's really, really, really important. Also, ethics is the same for level 1, 2, and 3. So it's good to get a good background right from the start with the ethics. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is, don't leave anything out. Like you say, I hate derivatives, so I'm not going to do it. So if you dislike derivatives, let's maybe go for 50%. And then we can score better in other areas, like in equity. That's not a difficult section. We can even get 90% for equity. So if we get 90% for equity and 50% for derivatives, it's going to even out, right? So it's very important to do everything. Don't just focus on what you like and leave out what you don't like. Right. And then one thing I want to mention is the quantitative methods. Why we do it first is we apply it to many of the other topics like equity, fixed income, derivatives. It's all over the place. So that's why we got to do it first, and we get it out the way there. Right. And so now the question we get asked a lot is, what do I need to pass? And the answer is there's no clear-cut answer, because CFA Institute, they don't release, what the pass mark is, because it varies from time to time. But 70% is what we need to aim for, because that's known to be safe. But here's the but. They do adjust the pass mark according to the difficulty of the exam. So if it's a really tough exam, then maybe even 65 might be good enough. Who knows? Maybe 66, but we don't know. So what I always like to say is that if you work very hard and you know your work and you're finding the exam difficult, don't lose hope, because chances are that so is everyone else, and then they're going to bring the pass mark down. Right. And then, like we were saying on the previous slide, we don't actually have to pass each topic to pass. It's our total score that counts. So that's the most important thing. Right. Okay, so let's have a look at how we're going to prepare for the exam. So what CFA Institute have got, they've got what they call these learning outcome statements, and there's close to 500 of them now for the level 1 exam. So we need to focus on them. So an example of one is calculate the net present value of a series of cash flows. So there, the command word was calculate. So therefore, we got to know how to calculate that. Now, in many of the other LOSs, it's an explain or a describe or analyze or whatever. So they don't really want you to calculate anything. So just make sure you focus on what you need to know, as you go through the material. Right. So the most important thing is to understand the curriculum concept and apply the principle. So that's what we emphasize in all our courses, is because once you understand it, then you actually start enjoying it, believe it or not, and the whole learning experience becomes totally different, and we can then start enjoying ourselves and applying everything even into our own, into the real world and to our own investments. So that's what we need to do. So we can't just memorize like a parrot. That's not going to work at all, right? And then one thing that's quite weird is that the CFA exam is actually a conceptual exam. So it's the words, the letters CFA are misleading, because it stands for, as we know, Chartered Financial Analyst. So we think, oh well, I'm going to be on my calculator for 2 hours or 2.25 hours, whatever it is. But it's not like that. We don't really use the calculator that much. They want us to understand the concepts, even with formulas. They want to know, like with the net present value we just discussed, they might not even ask us to calculate. They might ask us, well, what happens if the discount rate goes down? Will the net present value go up or down? So we need to know that the discount rate is in the denominator. So we've got if the discount rate goes down, but we divide by a smaller number, our net present value goes up. So it's things like that, where they really want us to understand the links between everything. Right. And the way I like to approach our exam prep, and we'll summarize this when we're done, is that I like to break up our prep into 3 phases. So the first stage is learning the material. So that's over here. When we're learning, we've got to know it first and understand what's going on. And then once we've learned it and been through the material and done the classes, then the second part is question practice. So that's the second part. It's very, very, very important. So here are some sources for us. In the CFA Institute books, they've got what they call the end of reading questions. Very important to do. There's a slide we're going to do now. They're explaining more on that. And then question banks, vital. And we will talk more about question banks now. We partner with a company called Schweizer, where they've got a Q bank of over 3,000 questions, which is awesome. I love it. It really, really reinforces what we've learned. And then the practice exams, we're going to talk about over here now. So the practice exams, what we got to do with them, or the mock exams, we must focus on them in the last, say, 2-3 weeks up to the exam. We must really do them, because that's when everything comes together. So this is the third phase then, is I like to call it the mock and the review phase. Because what happens is when we do these mock exams, we still go back to our books because especially the questions we got wrong, we're still going to refer back to our books and learn. Even when we do question practice along the road, like the QBank, we still go back to our books all the time and reinforce. So that is absolutely vital to our success, is doing our questions and our mock exams. And then,
Tim, can I ask
yes,
you something quickly?
yes.
We have a question from Nshembo, and it's probably a good time to ask, who says, Hi, Tim. Do you think the quizzes from Schweizer Notes have the same level of difficulty as the exam?
The quizzes. Yes, it's hard to say because the exam is going to vary year to year. But Schweizer, they definitely, I found it myself. I use it, and I found their quizzes were right up there. And also, you can also choose difficulty now, so you can go for hard questions. So I found it myself right up there, and it really prepared me very well. I loved it. So I would say yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. And then as we were saying in one of the earlier slides, what we want to try and do is get up to that 500 hours. So in the last 2-3 weeks before the exam, if you can take study leave and just do CFA full time, that's when you can do all your practice exams day and night and really get in a lot of hours, leading up to the exam. So what I always like to say, a good tactic to your boss is say to them, what is the company policy for the study leave? How many days do I get per subject? So they'll normally say 1 day or 2 days. Well, then you say, great. Well, I'm writing 10 exams in 1 day, which we just saw, right? So I want 20 days study leave. Now, they're not going to give it to you. So maybe, but start there. Start high, start a negotiation, and maybe say come down to 10 days study leave, which is like 2 weeks. So, and we've also got a study letter motivation. We study leave motivational letter, beg your pardon, which we can send if anybody needs, which I've given to many, many candidates, and it's worked. So it's just explaining what it involves. Right. And then this is a personal thing on my side. I don't like to study, late at night, just because what I don't know, let's say 6 or 7 o'clock, I'm never going to know. So rather don't jeopardize what you do know, and rather be fresh for the morning. Right. And then, like we've mentioned this before, we mustn't leave anything out when we do our prep, because even if we get 50% for the stuff we don't like, it's still going to help us, to get marks. Right. And then this is what I was mentioned. We're going to look at a slide about those end of reading questions. Now, these are the questions in the CFA Institute books. And why I like to highlight it is some people don't do them. But look what CFAs they say themselves. They say all of these questions and their solutions, they're part of the curriculum and they're required, right? So we've got to know them. So in addition to the in-text example they do, these questions, they demonstrate practical applications and they reinforce our understanding. So that's absolutely vital to do. And then some of these questions, they're actually adapted from past papers, or they may serve as a basis for exam questions. So the thing is that CFA Institute, they no longer release past exams. The last time they did it, I think, was 25 years ago or something like that. So those days are gone. So that's why the best source, for difficulty, someone was asking is for questions. Also have a look, do all of the questions in the CFA Institute books that at the end of every reading, they're called the end of reading questions. Sometimes also called practice problems. It's the same thing. So make sure you do all of those. Absolutely vital. Okay, and here, finally, just some exam tips for us. So as we were saying earlier, the time is absolutely vital. Remember, we only got 90 seconds per question, so we've got to know our work well. We've got to answer quickly and accurately. So it works out at about 20 questions per half hour. So just keep a close eye on that. So following on from that is the big way to do good time management is don't waste time on the hard stuff, right? Leave them until the end, just make a note of them and then come back. And then the great news is that we don't have to leave anything blank because there's no negative marking. So whatever you haven't answered, let's say there's 2 minutes to go, just mark everything your favorite letter, whether A, B, or C. So if A is your favorite, mark everything A. You never know your luck, right? So we should get 1 in 3 right of what you couldn't answer. Right. And then one last thing here is that after you read a question, or what's a good idea is to do is to formulate your own answer in your head before you look at the answer choices. So if you do this, it actually makes sound the choices that they've given you may sound better. So for example, let's say they ask us about expansionary fiscal policy. They say expansionary fiscal policy is, and now they've got A, B, or C. So you say to yourself, before you look at the answer choices, fiscal policy, that's to do with government spending and taxes. So if it's expansionary, that means they're going to increase government spending or they're going to cut taxes. So I want to find an answer choice that's related to those things. And if they come up with anything about cutting interest rates, they're talking nonsense because that's monetary policy. So things like that. So that's a very good strategy that works, that I find works well. Right. And then just from a prep point of view, just so we can see how we can help you guys prepare for the exam, I mentioned we partnered with a company called Kaplan Schweizer. They're based in America, and they've been doing CFA training for over 30 years. And they are the leaders in the world with CFA training. And as I mentioned, I used them myself, and I found it absolutely outstanding. So that's why we partner with them. So we've got the Schweizer notes. So as I'm going to put here, this is phase 1, which is the learning phase here. So the Schweizer notes, what we mentioned at the beginning in the first slide, that the volume with CFA is hectic. It's like close to 3,000 pages. So the Schweizer notes, they summarize that to about 1,000, just over 1,200 pages. So it makes your life a lot easier. It's the summarized version. And then the module videos, what's great about them is they take you through the Schweizer notes, which is very nice. So those videos, they walk you through the Schweizer notes. And then once you've done that, and you've done the questions in the Schweizer books, then you can go to what they call the masterclass. So that's on demand, so you can watch it anytime and as often as you like. But you need some knowledge before you do the masterclass. So that's why you got to do these 2 guys first. And then we also do the masterclass in person. We did a class last year from April to August in preparation for the August or November exam. We're going to do the same thing again, but that's only in Johannesburg. So we're going to start again in April for where we meet once a week on a Tuesday from 5 to 9 p.m. So, but what we don't cover in class, you got covered here in the video. And also, so the same slides we do in class in person are the slides that are pre-recorded in videos. Right, so the material is the same, and it's great to have a backup in case you miss a class or you miss something, right? But and then you do the other option is just on demand only, online only. And then the masterclass workbooks, this is just the hard copies of the slides we give you, so you can make notes as we go along in class. It's just the slide workbooks really. And then this is the Q bank that I mentioned. So this would also then be part of the learning phase over here, understanding phase. Now we come to phase 2, which is the question phase, right? So this is phase 2, which is the questions here. We've got the Q bank where there's over 3,000 questions, which is awesome. So you can choose what you want to do, which topic and which section in the topic. So it's really, really awesome. And you must do all those questions, as we said, that really reinforces everything. It reinforces your understanding. And as we said, we always go back to our books when we do this, especially the questions we get wrong. And then we've also got the CF Institute question review videos. So these questions over here we spoke about, of the questions from the CFA Institute books. We've got videos which explain some of those questions over there, the harder questions. We've got videos on those. And then we've got the mock exams, right? So these are the Schweizer mock exams. We've got 4 of them. And then also, remember, when you enroll with CF Institute, they also give you 3. It might be 4 now, because they're always changing the number, how many they give you, but also, so that's very important. So this is now the final phase, which is the review. What do I call it again? The mock. Sorry, I call it this the mock and the review phase. So let's just call it M and R. So this is the final phase over here. We do the mock and the review. So remember, why it's review is because we're always going back to the books all the time, back to the Schweizer notes all the time when we're doing these, especially for the questions we get wrong. And then the checkpoint exams are also a type of practice exams. So what's great about them is you get 3. And so we do one of them 1/3 of the way through, another one 2/3 of the way through, another one at the end. So we've got those 3 checkpoint exams as well. And then the quick sheet is also like, it's more like review there, so R. So it's like everything is nicely put together in a 6-page laminated document. So all the important formulas and everything is on the quick sheet. And then we've also got the Captain Schweizer community. So if you need to ask a question, there's experts there and who answer, and even sometimes fellow students answer, like in a study group. So we've got that community as well. And then lastly, we've got the pass protection, which hopefully we're not going to use. So that is, if we don't make it, you get the same package again at no charge, right? Yeah, and that's about it.